It's the Zach Martin Show here on New HD TV. I'm with David Salidor, a good friend of mine, one of those great PR minds. And we're going to cover a few topics that'll give you some tips about the way you should approach your public relations. And then we'll give you information how you can get a hold of David. Maybe he should be your PR guy. I mean, I think that's a smart idea. But before we do that, let's just pause a second and remember our friend, Mark Bigo, who couldn't figure out how to come into the session. Lord, we pray for Mark that somehow, some way, someday, he'll figure out how this modern technology works. May he sell many books as the phone rings. I guess we got our answer. Just put up the book, Eat Like a Rock Star, so that we at least got that. And this is phenomenal. I love this book. They're at the paperback edition right now, and it's perfect for the holidays. This is a collaborative effort with Mark Bigo. And why don't you tell us about who he's collaborating with on this book?
Well, Mary Wilson, a dear friend of his, Eat Like a Rock Star, recipes from
one of the Supremes.
Yeah, one of the Supremes, one of the greats. Recipes from Bill Wyman, Rolling Stones, Michael McDonald, Boz Scaggs, Ray Parker Jr., Mr. Ghostbusters, Lou Christie,
the Lightning Strikes,
Debbie Gibson,
Debbie Gibson. All right, so here's what we'll do.
Yeah.
We will go over two different recipes before we talk about you.
Okay.
What was that list again? Boz Scaggs?
No. Bill Wyman.
Bill Wyman. Let's go to Bill Wyman's.
Okay.
I find him interesting. While you're looking for that, I got a Bill Wyman story. So he comes over, and I think you were part of this, where he's got this book out about the Rolling Stones. And he was talking about retiring from the Rolling Stones. And I thought he retired because he hated to fly, and that was part of it. So I looked at him in all seriousness, and I go, well, how did you get here then? Did you row across the remember that? I go, did you row your way? He goes, I flew, and he got mad. Anyway.
Bill Wyman, very good friend of Mary Wilson's and Mark, lamb chops with endive salad.
Ooh.
I'm not a lamb chop guy, and someone actually asked Mark, of all the recipes in the book, who surprised you the most? And Bill Wyman,
lamb chops.
Lamb chops.
He doesn't seem like the lamb chops sort of guy. Now, there's a way to make lamb chops. This is my opinion. If you roast them on an open pit fire, then they're really good. But when you try to do it any other way, I don't like it.
One recipe I do want to highlight. Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees came up with his own signature cocktail called the Mickey D.
All right, let's go over the Mickey D right now. And while you're looking for the Mickey D, in case those of you who are just tuning in, we're with David Salidor. You can go to davidsalidor.com. He is the quintessential PR guy. I mean, if you need PR, David Salidor can make it happen. This has been brought to you by a special announcement of David Salidor.
The ingredients, very, very easy. 2 fresh slices of orange, 4 ounces, I guess, of vodka. Tito, right? 4 ounces. Sounds like it should be more. And one ounce of Saint Germain, which is a...
Is that a bitter? Is that like a bitter?
It is like an herb, and it's got to be muddled. So there's a special muddling. Now, the funny part about this cocktail is that we had a party for Mark's book in New York City. Well, actually, it was a party for Mickey. It was a birthday party. And we served the Mickey D. The owner of the cutting room, who I've known for years, terrific fellow, Steve Walter, I never saw him drink. I'm not judging, but I mean, I would have a drink. He wouldn't have a drink. I walked over to the bar. He's drinking a Mickey D. And he says to me, these are pretty good. Anyway,
so
it's a great drink.
Mickey D's smash. And then last one we want to get to is our friend Debbie Gibson. Well, obviously, it's going to be something healthy, I would imagine. I'd be very surprised if it wasn't.
I haven't worked with Debbie in several years, but interestingly enough, we're more in touch now. We're more in touch about just a whole bunch of other things.
Well, while you're looking for
and
Debbie Gibson's,
no, here I got it. Her recipe, her suggestion surprised me. Bison burger on a bed
okay, I
of
like
greens.
See, now this is a high
Yeah.
protein, low fat
Yeah.
type of meat. That's really good for you. On a bed of greens. I mean, was there any sort of other garnishes?
You know,
What kind of spices are we talking here? And this is another one of those type of meats you have to put on an open fire.
actually, a whole bunch of ingredients. I'm going to just run them down: olive oil, goat cheese, arugula, mayonnaise,
with the goat cheese,
iceberg lettuce, tomatoes, and avocado.
Okay, avocado.
So
tell her I like the bison or the buffalo burger.
Bison.
Yeah.
Bison is like a bull, right?
No, it's a
like
buffalo. Buffalo. Yeah.
Okay.
It's buffalo burger.
Okay.
It's cool.
Buffalo burger.
Now, Debbie Gibson one time, and then we'll get on to you. I remember watching, the, what was it? That show about those guys with the ducks out in the field, Duck Commanders, or remember that?
Yeah.
All right. So
long beards. I thought it was
everybody had a long beard
at first.
Yeah. I forget what they call that, but the show was very funny. And there's a character, Phil, and then his brother, Cy.
Mm-hmm.
So Cy was convinced that the house that they were near, he goes, that's Debbie Gibson's house.
Wow.
So they were saying that Debbie Gibson was from Louisiana. That's Debbie Gibson's house. They played her music. So I found that, was watching the television, and I recorded it, and I sent it to Debbie Gibson just so she could have it. She thought that was pretty funny.
Debbie is from Long Island, as I am, but I spent so much time at that house that I have burned into my memory the address. I'm not going to give it, but it was, Sterling Avenue in Merrick, Long Island.
That's nice. I'm sure that now people are going to probably zero it down. I'm sure that's going to happen. So, and then Debbie also, her sister, she works, right? Yeah. All right. So I remember going back and forth with the sister.
She actually has three sisters.
Oh, okay.
Michelle, Karen, Denise, and Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
So it was formidable, but they were great. I worked with her during her late 80s ascent, and it was great. I mean, we traveled to Europe. We had on the Concorde, going to London, coming back. We actually took off at 11 a.m. on a Monday from London, and we got back to New York at 8 a.m. So we actually picked up time.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
Time travel. They're going to bring that back to supersonic flight.
I hope so.
David, you have a long and storied career. You've represented some amazing personalities over the years, including Debbie Gibson, Mickey Mullins, that guy, another guy, myself, famous radio people.
Run DMC too. Don't
Run
forget
DMC,
about that.
Yeah. Is there maybe in your mind, in your observation, is there a common character trait that makes somebody successful or makes somebody go from C level to A level?
Right. It obviously all comes down to talent, but you have to have just that drive, that consistent, persistent drive to make it. The music business, as we both know, and I've actually just lost you, Zach. Are you still there? Maybe not.
I'm letting you talk.
Okay.
You've
got to have that drive. A good friend of both of ours, Steve Leeds, who works up at Sirius, always says a good song is a good song. If it's a good song now, it's going to be a good song then. But you've got to have that drive, and you've got to surround yourself with a stable, even if it's only two people who have experience, have had some successes, because there's a lot you got to do.
And there's a lot of things that you shouldn't handle yourself, which is where
Yes.
you come in. There's those, you're the buffer. And it's not like you're the gatekeeper, but you prevent and you allow certain things to happen or not happen based on your judgment. And that's part of a PR guy's job, to make sure that, the person, the persona that is perceived is managed, coached, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
What makes your job difficult when you're working with a client?
Some clients will come to me and they will feel that they have, they know what to do, and some actually do. And my job is to execute their ideas, my ideas, using my experience, using my abilities. Debbie Gibson, for one, and I met her when she was 15, coming home from high school. Her first records didn't come out until she was 18. So I actually had quite some time to develop a relationship with her and her then manager, and make all those things happen. You know, uh, a lot of people come to me when their product has just come out. That's tough because it will take me and my team a good 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks to design the campaign and then begin to execute it. I had someone come to me last week with about a book that came out in June. It's practically January. We're kind of behind the 8 ball. There are things that can be done. I'm actually gonna work with this fellow, but timing is very important.
When you talk about working with authors,
Mhm.
this has been my observation.
Right.
They assume that the person like myself who might be interviewing them has
Hmm.
the time to read their entire book. So here you go, authors. Work with your
Right.
PR guy, give the interviewer a synopsis,
Right.
and give him some key questions that he can ask
Hmm.
that keeps it on point to help sell your
Right.
book. This is a big mistake that many PR people make. They put the interview together and they
Right.
give the guy who's doing the interview nothing to work with. And they're like, well, come up with some questions. I'm like, well,
Right.
listen. And in this example, you and I have worked in the past where um, there might be something that we want to do in a trade magazine about my career. And you tell me, here's 10 things that I need you to write about yourself. Or if I'm like, gee, Dave, I'm not really sure what I should talk about in this, a good PR agent will guide you along that process.
Absolutely. There's an old PR saying that I've used for years. You can't get publicity on yourself by yourself. You've got to go to the professional. Speaking about giving questions before the interview. I've worked with Mickey Dolenz for 15 years, and that's always been the way I go about setting up an interview, whether it's a radio interview or print interview. Um, and I'm talking to this one guy in Tallahassee about an interview, and I sent him, suggested talking points, questions that he might want to pick from to ask Mickey. And I swear to God, I get the guy on the phone. He said, it's the first time I've ever gotten questions from a PR person. And it just made me think, the new PR people, how do they execute a campaign?
Well, not very well, because it's
Yeah.
been my same experience. That's why we're having
Right.
this chat. This is for people who are also PR professionals that are on their way up, for people that might need a PR person as part of their plan or
Right.
their management team. The value of it, how there's certain things you can do on your own, certain things that you can do for yourself, but it's better to look, you know, me asking you about professional
Right.
PR, public relations, and getting your opinion about that kind of stuff is a smart thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't ask you about certain software applications that are part of what I do,
Right. Right.
like so. And as I built my new HD media company,
Mhm.
I have a group of people around me. PR is part of the budget, right? So it takes a while before you raise
Right.
your funds and all of that. But what I've learned along the way from other business leaders and various other personalities and entrepreneurs, surround yourself with really good people,
Yeah.
and don't
Yeah.
try to do something that you're really not good at
Right.
doing.
Right.
You could teach you
Because the odds
something.
are, if you do attempt to do something you've never done before, you're going to screw it up.
Well, it's a question of time. Time is money.
Yeah.
So you could be focusing on building that business or building
Right.
certain aspects of your career. How about this? If you're a musical artist, you could be practicing with your vocals
Right.
instead of wasting your time on the phone.
Right.
So there's that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There is an ROI. Sometimes it's not always measurable with public relations.
Mhm.
What has been your biggest frustration with the value of what you do and the expectation?
Boy, that's a great question. Lately, I mean, every time we start with a new client, we've got to go back to step A. And I must say, after doing that for 37, going on 38 years, it's not tiring. It's just, I've kind of done it. You know, I'm 66. It's a little too late for a career change, but it's hard. I mean, I every new client I've got to basically say the same things to, and trust that they're going to believe what I'm saying. Hire me, and hopefully get the job done.
I remember when you first started working with me, you gave me a list of publications
Right.
and I guess maybe television shows, interview shows that I wanted to be part of. And
Right.
on the top of my list was Rolling Stone magazine. I mean,
Right.
I gave you this list. You were like, hey, that's great. I think it's doable, but it's going to take a long time. I think that sometimes we have to temper our expectations about,
Absolutely.
because the writers at Rolling Stone, the
Mhm.
people on The View, just as an example, the writer for the New York Post or the Daily News, they're inundated
Yeah.
with stuff on a regular basis. So the advantage of having a PR guy is you've established all those relationships.
Hmm.
Not to say that we couldn't, right? But again, it takes a lot of time that you probably do not have. So,
Right.
um, when you think of putting together your public relations campaign for a individual
Hmm.
and you come up with your pricing range,
Hmm.
what kind of reaction do you usually get when you say, here's what it's going to cost? You don't have to tell me what the price is. It's not what it's
No,
about, but you know,
I mean, I think the mere fact that someone will reach out to me, I mean, they have a general idea of the prices, but they're more concerned with how I would personally address it. I mean, every PR person has a different system. I don't do what Susan Blonde does. I don't do what Chris Bono does, who is one of the big theater press agents and an excellent one. Uh, I mean, all the good PR people to my mind, we all kind of do the same things, but we operate a little bit differently. I mean, and you're right. It is about the connections, the relationships I mean, there's some people that I've really worked with. I mean, going on 30, 35 years. Um, it's a little daunting when I think about it, but I have worked with people at Billboard, people at Variety and Hollywood Reporter for decades. I'm lucky to be here, and they're lucky to be there. I mean, the business is changing. I mean, you look at it, even in TV and movies, the whole streaming process. You heard about Warner Brothers movies. All of their movies in 2021 are going to debut in the theaters and for a month on HBO Max. So that immediately changed everything. The playing.
well, the technology and the situation. What is
Right.
it? Necessity is the mother of
Yeah.
invention, right? So There are some broadcasting companies that are going to where I already have been for the past couple of years, right? Reinventing myself, using the newest technologies. And listen, it's really a daunting task. And I'm not going to tell everybody my secrets and how I did it, because you know something? Some of those secrets you should guard because they're valuable.
Well, I don't tell my secrets either.
No,
I mean,
you can't. That's a silly thing to do.
But
Now,
I want to make clear that everyone kind of operates, their own way.
They have their own way.
We all do the same things, but we do it differently.
Well, that's where the personality comes in.
Yeah.
Everybody does it with their own flair, their own personality. Is there ever a type of client that you won't take?
When I meet someone for the first time, whether it's on Zoom now or in person, I immediately kind of get a sense. I get a sense of, are they going to let me do what I need to do, or are they going to kind of hold back? I mean, in the old days, a friend of mine used to say, there were two types of clients. The client who would come in and, pay you exorbitantly, but you would listen to him and execute his ideas. I mean, we both know a lot of those people. Or client B, who would come in and pay you, but would listen to you and work with you. That's the type of client that I want to work with. I mean, Debbie was like that. I mean, she was 15, 16, but she really listened. Madonna, we did a lot of stuff with Madonna, and Madonna, I mean, I used to get this question a lot, so I'm going to bring it up. What was Madonna like? Well, Madonna was like a sponge. She soaked up information from everyone, as she should have, and ultimately she made the decision herself what to do. I mean, that's actually my favorite type of client, who will listen to me till I'm blue in the face, and then say, okay, let's do it. Or can we do it like this? I mean, okay. I want a relationship. I don't want a fiefdom where, go do this and go do that. And,
Well, listen,
I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, no, you have. So I'm going to do something that's pretty, maybe a little bit awkward, or kind of fun or funny. I don't know.
I mean, can I say one other thing? I mean, there really been only two cases in my, storied career that I've really regretted taking on a project. So I think my track record is pretty good. And no, I won't mention who they are.
Well, you could say what industry they were in. Were they musicians or actors?
They were in the music industry.
Okay, fine, fair enough. What was it like working with the great Zach Martin?
Zach who? It was great. I mean, you
fire that guy.
I mean, you're a legend already in the radio world. I mean, we first met when you were working with Scott, who I grew up listening to, idolizing. And, I got to know him a little bit. I mean, we went to some events together. I remember the Graham Nash party we had gone to with Danny Glass, and someone,
Artemis,
I won't name who, came into the party and said, okay, where are the CDs? And this fellow was one of the principals of the record company.
Yeah, I remember that.
I couldn't believe it.
Where are the CDs? Oh my gosh.
I mean, we did leave with CDs, and it happened to have been, I don't think Graham Nash was there. Well, no, he might have been there. I mean,
I don't remember. See, Graham and I, we used to get along great.
Well, I know your Graham story.
What about the Richard Nixon?
Yes.
Yeah, I see. It's ever since that moment, I've never heard from him.
And Graham is living in New York now.
He's up in Woodstock. Well, and he's got a place in the city too.
The Village, but Woodstock is close enough.
There's a reservoir up in Woodstock. As you go by the drum circle, you keep going straight, and you go right up the hill. I forget the name of it. There is a nice reservoir. Beautiful, picturesque, and if you walk there, you might walk into Graham Nash. Now,
you want to hear my Graham Nash story?
Go ahead.
My office now, after 34 years of being at 57th and Broadway, we relocated 4 years ago to 26th and Broadway in Chelsea. I love it down here. I mean, the building uptown was sold. We had to vacate. I panicked, but Anyway, we're right next to the Rizzoli, which is a fantastic, elegant bookstore in Manhattan. And interestingly enough, when I first came to Manhattan, that was one of the first stores I had gone to, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, they sold records, and now I'm every time I walk out of my building, I'm there. Anyway, I'm walking out one night, and as I passed the Rizzoli, there's Graham Nash talking to a bunch of people. And I was just in the middle of reading again his biography, Wild Tales. Fantastic book. And, you know, he knows Mickey Dolenz. And I really wanted to go say something to him, but he was in conversation. So I kind of walked maybe another 20 feet. I pivoted, which is a new word for 2020. And I walked back and I excused myself and I said to Graham, I said, yeah, I'm Mickey's PR guy. I said, I'm rereading your book, Wild Tales, and I'm just loving it. And he looks at me, he was wearing sunglasses, took the sunglasses, and he looks at me, he says, it was quite a life, wasn't it? So now, I mean, that to me, I made my day. Made my day.
Graham, I met him first at maybe the second time or third time, right. But I met Graham Nash. I know we were at the same party together. It was at Peter Max's studios up in Lincoln Center, and Graham is there, and it's a party. Oh, that great shortstop for the Yankees was there. The kid, he's retired now. Why can't I remember his name?
Yeah.
You know, he's a famous.
What year?
96.
Oh, okay. No.
I mean, come on. I should know that. The core four.
I know the 64 Yankees by heart. I kind of got out of baseball after that.
But because they lost miserably in the World Series, I think. Derek Jeter's there. And everybody's hanging around him. And well, this is my... Oh, yeah, Carly Simon is there. Bette Midler is there. I mean, it's just amazing. All the people.
How come I wasn't there? How come I didn't go with you?
This was 96. This is, you know, before I was at Q1043, or it might have been around the same time. Anyway, so Graham met me once. I told him my name, and that entire party, every time he walked into me, hey, Zach, hey, Adam, hey, this guy, hey, that guy. I'm like, how the hell do you do that? I mean, this is like preachers who have their congregates in front of them wish they had that ability to remember the names at the door on the way. I'm like, how do you do that? And he's like, oh, just do it. I always found him very fascinating, always friendly.
I mean, me too. Me too.
You know, unfortunately, there was the Dick Nixon incident, and I think it hasn't been the same since. I think it's funny.
Incident. It sounds like a movie.
Incident. I mean, I haven't heard from him since. It's very funny to me. Like, look, that's not my fault that the picture of Richard Nixon was on the wall. I had a theme in my office.
You know, one day you'll be walking around Manhattan and you will literally bump right into him.
Yes. And what is it? I'm just going to do like a Larry David. Is it Dick Nixon? And he's like, you haven't talked to me since you saw that, the change in the face. I mean, come on, man. Now, I will say this, the importance of PR. I do not think that I would be at this point in my career where I had the maneuverability to do what I want to do without having you as part of my life. So thank you for that. I mean, you really...
you were a great client and an even better friend.
Well, see, that's even more important. And from time to time, I'll say, Dave, I got a project for you. Boom. Now, here's the other thing, too, that was really great. Today is the anniversary of the arrest of the guy who killed my mom. Remember, Charles Cullen. And it was working with you and working with the people that I met at the Daily News through Byron Hunt, the linebacker for the New York Giants, that we did a couple of different things. First of all, Charles Cullen didn't like the victim impact statement. You knew about that. You knew it was going on. I was all over Court TV and all of that. And the efforts of my wife plus you, plus the right connection over at Kensington and Penguin, we were able to actually do a book co-authored by Cliff Leindecker. So we did that. And then we got the ability to take one of the chapters and put it into the New York Daily News on a Sunday edition. It was a great, I think, I'm going to call it a PR coup, because there was so much competition over the story. There were so many people trying to make their money on it. I didn't look at it as a make money kind of thing. I talked to you about this. The guy refused to listen to the victims. He didn't want to sit for the victim impact statement, and he hated things written about him. So we put together the team, and I think that that was probably the most unnoticed, most successful PR campaigns in the history of the tri-state, because it pulled it off on so many different levels, and none of us expected it. But it was our ability to work together as a team. This is the importance of it, to make lemonade out of lemons. I mean, it was a really crappy situation.
Turn it around.
It was horrible, but we were able to make some good come out of it. So, thank you for being instrumental in that. As we remember, on this day in 2003, the arrest was made, and going into 2004. To this day, on occasion, I'll get contacted from the BBC. Recently, I passed it on to somebody else and various other news outlets. I don't want to talk about it on those outlets anymore, because what they end up doing. Here's another great thing about having a good PR guy. You quarterback and manage, and you mitigate the negative impact of the situation. So talk about, like, we've talked about all the positives that you can bring, but how does a PR guy like yourself mitigate negative situations?
Well, I think based on my experience and based on the fact that I've made some mistakes early on in my career, I just instinctively, now can tell, is this a good idea? Is this a bad idea? Artists, sometimes very emotional, very passionate, and that passion, does not always translate well to the intended victim, shall we say. I have to use my best judgment, because I work with all these media people, with all our clients. So if, client A is pissed off, I've still got to work with the guy with client B, C, D, and E. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course it makes sense.
I mean, I've got to use my judgment.
It's not about sometimes the good things that you do, but people only remember the bad things you do, or how you're perceived in the media, all of those different things. Take a situation like that and just give us a quick 1, 2, 3 about how you could turn it around. I mean, I know it's really a high bar, but it's just an example of what you could walk into any given day. Might be Mickey Dolenz. It could be somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it's I have had flammable situations like that, and I have to really think long and hard. The short implications as well as the long-term implications. I mean, I really don't follow politics. A few friends of mine have run for office. They have come to me, and I've politely declined.
Yeah.
It's I mean, I'm 66, so I remember Kennedy and I remember Reagan, and politics just seems fraught with problems.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and I mean, I have enough of my own problems. I don't need to increase that.
Okay, that's a good answer. Here's what I would say to the client. I would go, first of all, you're going to shut your mouth. Secondly, you're going to stay off Twitter or social media for a little bit. Let it cool down. Because after a couple of weeks, something else will happen, and you'll be out of the news cycle.
I mean, if it's, I don't mean to interrupt, but if it's for Trump, it would be hard, because he has shown time and time again, he kind of does what he wants to do.
That's exactly. We talked about the two types of clients.
Yes,
so
he would be the A client, and probably the money wouldn't even be that good.
Well, you never know, but like, I would say, toss him aside. Let's just say anybody. Shut your mouth. Keep quiet.
Oh yeah.
Let me handle it, and then you start to reach out to the press, and you got to try to find a way to quell it. Right. Wait for the next.
I mean, I also think the people he has had, Kellyanne Conway, and the current I don't even know her name with the blonde hair. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how experienced they are. I mean, as you said before, it does help to have professional people around you.
You have to have somebody with wisdom. That's really important, because knowledge is different than wisdom. You know, you got to be able to like simmer down. Now, you know, even with the tweets, how many times have you seen somebody tweet something? You're like, oh my God, what the hell are you thinking? And then, that wasn't me. My account was hacked. It was an intern. I'm sorry. First of all, we're not getting your account's been hacked, because we've all have the same type of thing with Twitter. Nobody's hacking our accounts. I mean, it happens, but I've noticed that I got locked out of my Twitter pretty fast if that did happen. And then I have to try to figure out phone numbers and all of that stuff. So I don't buy that. The intern story is just somebody is a scapegoat. Take responsibility.
I agree.
You know,
I mean, social media, it's, you know, it's a good thing and it's a bad thing. I mean, you have to be discreet.
Well, you and I, when we first started in, I guess, circa, I'm going to say 2000, just for the sake of the argument.
It was 98, 99, 2000. It was around there.
Almost 21 years. Yeah, 99. Look, you know something? We didn't have the social media stuff, right? We didn't.
But yet we got the job done anyway.
Yeah, we did. Well, you know, that's something interesting, because here's what I've learned to be successful at whatever you do. You really don't need a website. It's nice to have. It's an added. You really don't need to be on social media, because when people are looking for you, they'll find you. If you have something to sell and you can sell it on Amazon, that's pretty damn good. But I think the biggest ingredient is the right team and making sure you have the right PR guy, because he's got to pick up the phone. You got it. You know, it can't be me. You know, sometimes you're the icebreaker.
You can't get publicity on yourself by yourself, because it puts whoever you're talking to in kind of an odd dynamic. I mean, you know, the writer is thinking, well, suppose Zach Martin goes on to be the next David Geffen. I don't want to piss this guy off, but I can't do the story right now. And he might be reluctant to tell you that.
Yeah.
To the PR guy, I hear it a lot.
Yeah. You know? My one regret was, you know, and people sometimes they don't understand the complexities of what's going on in my world. When I was with Scott Meany working with him, and we all know that there were issues with Scott's health, especially towards the end, which made it very difficult for me to, and we don't have to go into the specifics, but you know, I had my challenges, and it put me at odds with people, because I protect my friends out of loyalty. That's what I do. I've always been the same. I stand up for what I believe in. I was with SAG-AFTRA, and I think some of the things I did as part of representing the other disc jockeys has still hurt me to this day. Right. Think about it. I have not been on New York radio since we came to the conclusion over the voice tracking issues. You know, this is.
I had forgotten about that.
Remember, I was the chief negotiator, the shop steward. Well, that was a great move on my part, but I thought to myself, F it, I'm going to do it. And you know something? I'll figure out a way to make it anyway. Because when you have that talent, you have that drive, and you really do think creatively, and you're an entrepreneur, nobody can defeat you. You'll always find a way. You just got to stick to it. Warren Zevon wanted to do an interview with us. And this is right around the time he's diagnosed with lung cancer. And he had just before it, and he had the new album. And I went to Scott, and he goes, no, I don't want to do it. And the reason why he didn't want to do it is because he just wasn't feeling up to it. And that was before I came to the idea of, well, Scott doesn't need to be here. So I started to get other people to host a show and stuff. And then when I finally got back to Warren Zevon, it was too late. And, well, he was still alive. But at that point, it's almost like I burnt the bridge. I mistakenly burnt the bridge. I also regret like having too much of a good time kidding with Peter Frampton, because I think he thought I took the jokes too far.
That story I don't know.
Yeah, and that was unfortunate.
So I guess you didn't read his book.
I'm not in his book.
You didn't read his book.
No, I didn't.
He has a bio out. He has a biography out.
I would have known that had we still been talking. I just hope that like I'm not mentioned in it, because
Right.
we had to like,
We might have to get it and see.
well, man, reach out to Peter. I'd like to have him on and like, clear
Right.
the decks, because I don't like having that long time, misunderstanding between
Yeah.
two people. And this is another word. You're the peacemaker. Sometimes you become the peacemaker.
Yeah.
Because we don't all in our careers, we're all going through different stages and we all have
Right.
different
Right.
issues. And you don't know what's going on in the
No,
other
I know.
person's mind
I
in their
mean,
shoes.
I have had situations with clients who are really, upset about something, and they'll say, call, I can't do that. I
Yeah,
can't
no,
do that.
I've been one of
I
those
mean,
clients.
because the
What
reality
son of a
is,
yeah.
in 6 months, the same client could come back and say, call so and so. I want to, it's
Well, I
hard.
mean,
It's hard.
I think being forgiving is a good thing, and trying not to hold the
Right.
grudge to the best of your abilities, and realize that 20 years ago we're all different people.
Right.
So after time, you just got to like stop
Right.
with the grudges.
And certainly after 2020, I mean, I think it's kind of put a lot of things in clearer perspective. I mean, this has been a tough year, and next year is going to be a tough year too. I was just talking to someone who is a talent booker for one of the bigger clubs. I won't name
I'm
which
a
one.
talent booker.
The
Just like
talent
that.
booker. And he's been working out of his home since February. And, his clubs are kind of running previously recorded virtual shows, but it's going to be a tough year. Next year is going to be a tough year. I mean, a lot of businesses that have managed to stay in business, me included, next year is going to be a tough year. So
I think my prediction for 2021, and I know I'm going to be 100% accurate, 2021, mark my words, David Salidor, is going to be an odd year.
An odd year. Like 2020, right?
Like 2019 was an odd year.
But
2017 was an odd
Can
year.
I tell you something funny? There's a website called Deadline Hollywood. In my humble opinion, it's probably the most accurate and the most, I mean, if there's a story, they'll have the story first. And the music fellow said that even though this has been an awful year for live talent, and next year will probably be an awful year for live talent, music sales this year have had increased. I think it was by $1 billion.
I'm not surprised by that figure.
Yeah.
The other thing
Well,
that I'm seeing,
but
more and more people are listening to their music on their handhelds
and reading books.
Reading, you're like a rock star. See what a great PR this guy.
Let me ask you a question. What's your album of the year?
I don't know what year it was released, but my favorite album right now is Steve Conte NYC.
Wow. Okay.
It's a great album. There's not a bad track on it. I think it was released maybe a year or two ago.
Right.
But I'm playing every single one of those tracks on New HD and New HD LA, which is our news station, LA Rocks. Here's some of the artists that I like. Whitney Tai. She's got an album called Apogee, song Righteous, and the video is available, newhdusa.com. There's a group called Trope. She's another artist out of the Los Angeles area. Los Angeles is hopping music-wise.
Right.
There's a song Ordinary Girl by Zach Bear Band. I think that's how you say it.
Zach
Bear. B-A-I. Yeah, you've heard of him. I like Blackpink.
Right. I mean, it's the end of the year, and the best of lists are coming out. And it's, it's been a kind of a crazy year, not a lot of live music, no concerts, no summer shows.
Yeah. I'll tell you what was done very well was Dave Mason and the Quarantines, where he had Mick Fleetwood, Sammy Hagar. I asked Dave, I'm like, how did you get Sammy Hagar?
Yeah.
Right. That's a weird combination. Sammy Hagar. I want you to think about that. Dave Mason, along with Michael McDonald and Mick Fleetwood. Well, They met
I
at one
listened
point.
to your interview. It was an excellent interview.
Oh, thank you.
But you know my one problem with that interview?
What's that?
Well, it wasn't your interview. The interview Mason had done for Facebook. The guy interviewing him, asked him all these questions, and supposedly he was doing a book on Dave Mason, and he got 2 questions totally wrong. So my thought was, if this guy is doing a book on Dave Mason, how could he get 2 Dave Mason questions wrong? One of them I remember was that he said, "Dave, how was it to do this master class guitar session, where you have students?" And Dave said, "I never did anything like that. It was
Oh my gosh, that reminds me.
it was embarrassing."
Remember when I interviewed Robert Plant and I just bombed? That was a bomb interview. Oh, that was horrible.
But
And
I
so
remember when you and I went to see Ringo.
That was excellent.
The Carlisle was great.
See, everybody's afraid to ask Ringo about the Beatles days. So I said, okay, the way I get to the Beatles question is really pour into Ringo Rama and just go down every single song and ask questions about every single track.
Right.
I mean, and then I go, Ringo, how did you get a Mellotron?
Right.
Those things are heavy.
It was a great interview. Great interview.
And then remember, I go, Scott wants to know. See, and I say Scott wants to know. They can't really give me a hard time because Scott wants to know. Scott wants to know what happened to the St. Christopher's medal. Oh, I told that story over and over again. And he retold it anyway. And then I go, final question for you. What was it like coming over on the airplane from London to New York City and being here for the first time? He goes, I was flying high at 35,000 feet. And just that answer. And then he did something else because of, here's a little insight. He did something else because I respected his project so much so that after we were done, he was willing to sign drum heads. Remember that? He would not do that for most people, but I just had a way of asking.
I remember thinking, you brought me up there. Zach should do all his interviews at the Carlisle. It was nice.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Nice. But now, see, here's the best thing with the technology, like what we're doing now.
Right.
Now, in how radio is going to work moving forward. Now we don't have to have the artists coming through town to do the interview.
Right.
They can do it from their home or wherever they're at. I'm never the one to say that I need to have the first interview or the exclusive. Here's what I ask. I'll promote you if you promote me. I'll take my time to interview you if you, put it out on social media and let everybody else know what I'm doing, because what's fair is fair. Like it's a two-way street. I value your time, you value my time, and I look at everybody equally. The one thing that you probably have noticed about me, I treat everybody exactly the same. It doesn't matter whether you're the CEO or the guy that's sweeping the floors, because I've done both jobs. I treat everybody equally.
Can I comment on what you just said? Not the ending, but it dawned on me that everyone is now getting so comfortable doing the Zoom. We may never do like an in-person thing again. I mean, in LA, the caterers, the limo drivers, the guys who dress the parties, I mean, a lot of people are out of work, so I mean, this virus has trickled down. But having said that, I mean, this is great.
Okay.
I could be totally naked from the waist down. You would never know.
God, I just hope not. You sick bastard. The technology that we're using on New HD brings the radio station to the house. So we're on a mission to hire people with autism and special needs and people with disabilities or primary caregivers. I'm telling you, man, the technology and the cost of the technology puts me at a competitive advantage because I'm working the scale. Okay.
Yep.
Here's an example of that, in that we don't have very expensive equipment that we're using, but it's high tech. Okay. It's good, but it's not expensive anymore.
Right.
Now, here's the other part of it. Like I said before, I can do, no matter where Debbie Gibson might be, if we decide that we want to do an interview for whatever the reason, we could do it. And then if she doesn't have her makeup on, she can stop the cam and it can be just a picture of her in a still. But this gives the artist a lot more maneuverability in that they can talk to a lot of different stations.
Yep.
And, if you do look, if you're an artist listening or watching, you have to work with your PR guy, but you also
Yep.
can't be lazy. You have to be doing something
Yep.
every day.
You have to be diligent.
You have to be. You got to show up. You
Now,
know, you got to show up to
yeah,
stuff.
I just want to add to what you just said that there are artists, some I work with, others I don't, who now have a timetable when they'll do Zoom, when they'll do makeup, when they'll do hair. So when they sit down, I mean, they'll sit down for 60 minutes and do like 4 or 5 interviews. And actually, it's not a bad idea. It's easier for me. It's easier for the artist. And in most cases, it's easier for the interviewer too. I mean, you can go from one interview to the next,